Let's kick off Black History Month by talking about a brilliant photographer who captured a crucial and fleeting moment in New York City's queer history, Alvin Baltrop. Welcome back to Yesterqueers. My name's Amanda, and I'm a public historian of queer history. In 1975, the city of New York was broke, and no one was coming to save it. The city government had been playing a sort of financial shell game since the 1960s when New York's shipping industry collapsed, and Manhattan, particularly Lower Manhattan, was in dire straits. The piers and warehouses that stretched along the Hudson from Midtown to Tribeca were all abandoned. And when a 60-foot section of the elevated West Side Highway collapsed under the weight of a single asphalt truck in 1973, the city couldn't afford to do anything about it. So for the next 15 years, according to Douglas Crimp, the collapsed highway stood as a ghostly barrier between civilized Manhattan and the Hudson River. Like many abandoned places, the West Side Piers became a refuge for people who lived on the margins. Homeless people sheltered beneath collapsing walls. Teenage runaways found safety in rotting buildings. Muggers, murderers, and drug dealers prowled the shadows, and bodies regularly washed out of the river. Artists like Gordon Matta Clark turned the ruins into large-scale art projects, while gay and bisexual men cruised the concrete shores of the Hudson at all hours of the day and night. Alvin Baltrop captured it all, his photographs giving us what Crimp called rare and indispensable evidence of the proximity and simultaneity of artistic and sexual experimentation in the declining industrial spaces of Manhattan during the 1970s. Alvin Baltrop, Al to his friends, was born in the Bronx on December 11th, 1948, and he got interested in photography when he was in junior high. This photo, taken at the Met Cloisters, is one of the first that he ever took. Thanks to the Vietnam War, Baltrop had to enlist in 1969, and he headed to boot camp the same week that his friends were protesting at Stonewall. As a medic in the Navy, he continued to take photographs, even building his own enlarger and developing trays from things that he found around the ship. When he was discharged and returned to New York in 1972, Baltrop enrolled at the School of Visual Arts and took a series of odd jobs before finally becoming a taxi driver. As the famed photographer Weegee had done decades earlier, Baltrop used a police scanner to find things to photograph between fares. Baltrop wanted to photograph the darkest parts of the city, to show humanity where most people only saw monsters, but even he was afraid of the piers. The first few times he went to take photographs, he was jumped and nearly lost an eye, beaten while trying to protect a teenager from being beaten, and once he even fell through a spot of rotten flooring and hung helpless over the river for half an hour until he was finally rescued. Baltrop credited his girlfriend at the time, Alice, with pushing him to go back to the piers and devote himself to the work. Throughout his life, he had long-term relationships with both men and women, but Baltrop referred to himself as gay. He thought the term bisexual was awkward and too politically correct. In 1975, Baltrop dropped out of art school and traded his taxicab for a moving van, in which he lived for days at a time at the piers when he was between moving jobs. His friend and one-time assistant Randall Wilcox wrote in a 2012 article for Atlantica, "Thus it was at the age of 26 that Alvin Baltrop finally found the dark he was searching for. The derelict warehouses were an organic environment where all of his aesthetic and thematic interests and obsessions converged." Baltrop took thousands of photographs of the West Side Piers from 1975 to 1986, even hanging from the rotting roofs of warehouses in a makeshift harness to get the perfect shot. He took pictures of men cruising and sunbathing and enjoying each other's bodies in the bright sunlight, but he wasn't a voyeur. He was a member of the community. He knew the stories of everyone he photographed, and they posed for him willingly, even in their most vulnerable and intimate moments. To quote Wilcox again, "In his photographs of bodies haloed by shafts of light, of men cruising throughout Pier 52, and of homeless people sleeping near the vast slice of floor that revealed the Hudson below, Baltrop realized and completed Matta Clark's vision of a sanctuary within a city." But of course, Alvin Baltrop's photographs didn't get the same kind of recognition that Gordon Matta Clark's and architecture did. In fact, Baltrop's work was virtually unknown while he was alive because the art world saw no value in it. One Soho curator said he must be a sewer rat type of person because of the subjects that he chose, and multiple gallery owners accused him of stealing a white photographer's portfolio and trying to pass it off as his own. So he stopped trying to get gallery shows and took his art to the streets instead, printing his photographs poster size and plastering them anonymously all over Manhattan. As the ruins of the piers and the West Side Highway were finally cleared away and the AIDS crisis gripped the queer community, Baltrop turned his attention to recording interviews with some of the subjects of his photographs. He knew that he was witness to a moment in history that was at risk of being lost, and he wanted to preserve it, saying in one taped interview, "Do you understand why I'm showing you these pictures and talking to you? It's important that we get a history. All, or let's say most of these guys that I'm showing you pictures of, are dead." Unfortunately, Baltrop never finished the history project that he envisioned. As the 90s wore on, his mother, his brother, and his long-term partner, Mark, all passed away, and his health declined. He suffered from diabetes and neuropathy, he had a few strokes, and finally, he was diagnosed with cancer. Alvin Baltrop was hospitalized in September of 2003 and told that he only had a few months left to live. According to Wilcox, he spent those months photographing elderly patients, empty cafeterias, barren waiting rooms, and finally himself. He died February 1st, 2004, at the age of 55. His vast archive of work and ephemera is now managed by the Alvin Baltrop Trust, which works to advance his legacy. To quote Wilcox again, "One of the many, many reasons why the pier photographs are extraordinary and important is that Al documented a certain group of gay people in a specific place at a specific time in a way that didn't glorify, demonize, exaggerate, or stereotype, ultimately showing his subjects as being human beings." That's it for today. As always, more information, including sources and further reading, is available in the usual place.